Hey there, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube. Before the video starts, I want to let you know that if you like it, to leave a like and a comment down below. And while you're at it, subscribe to the channel and click the little bell icon to be up to date with my latest content, as well as joining the notification squad or wolfification squad like this pack legend here. Thanks for your support, and enjoy the video. Starve a curse. Feed the soul. Chapter 5. Lamenting. The resounding rattling of chains in Summer's ears was matched with the throaty, angry snarls that shrouded the basement. The disconcerted woman had jerked backwards from the Wendigo diving himself at her. The sudden blow to her arm had caused her to harshly tumble askew and impact her elbow straight into the concrete floor. Still blinking the sparkling miscellanies of dots from her field of vision, Summer staggered to her scrapped hands and scuffed knees, and scurried between the washer and dryer like a mouse afraid of a flipped switch. When she finally understood that her heart wasn't actually going to pump out of her gaping mouth, the woman worriedly examined the limb which Ben had tried to lash onto. After a few moments of a good once-over, she pulled down her left battered sleeve. Summer was, without an absolute doubt, lucky. The Wendigo had barely grappled her, for she had ducked and covered just in the nick of time. Although her arm was bruised from the fall, amazingly, it was unscathed, with nothing fractured. However, the very tip of the beast's razor-sharp talons had done their work in that half a second. As Summer slowly clambered upwards, leaning her back to the right-sided wall, her right hand clutched on to where Ben had struck her. 4 tears in her coat and sweater, with the inner cottony materials frayed and quite visible. If the winter apparel weren't sequestered so well, the woman would be wringing the cellar floor red right now. The beast was effusively outraged, both at his prey for not being close enough, and at himself for not being quick enough. A voracious albino sights seared branding irons into the sore, aching, rasping woman. In contrast to her previous apologies for hurting him with her stun gun, the Wendigo's growing growls and snarling muzzle dripping with atonement emphasized quite the opposite of laments. He was not fucking sorry in the slightest. Once Summer's uptight diaphragm let her breathing become more collected, and her pulse rate lessened with pounding her chest and eardrums senseless, she began to put 2 and 2 together. Still clasping the arm that was almost slashed open as if it were a mere candy wrapper, Summer was for the most part cautiously optimistic with how long the tranquilizers would affect the Wendigo. She had given him enough to anesthetize a shire horse, while monitoring that his respiration stayed in a sound rhythm. Country-wise, Ben was an atypical beast, so regardless of the high dosage, the injected amount remained probationary. Thus, the prudent woman knew the risks, and only handled the temporary quiescent beast to secure and bring him home, and to keep herself in one solid piece. Summer's enlarged pupils glanced at her torn coat sleeve and swallowed hard. Holy mother of God, that was a close call. You just had to get close to him, didn't ya? Her mind ignored the usual taunting of her snippy conscience, because she was still connecting on what had just transpired. At the nursing home, Summer had seen patients wake up from narcotics. It took them a bit of time to become fully responsive to their surroundings, and Posey was off balance and groggy after returning home from being spayed at the veterinarian. But when the Wendigo had sprung, he was far from stupor. He was as swift and alert as ever, which meant one conclusive thing. He was fully recovered from sedation, and was biding his time to strike. Summer's hands and eyebrows tightened. Fright had gave way to anger mixed with hurt. More so than the imperiled woman's body had endured. She stormed forward until she was nearly halfway to the outreaching, ravenous beast. Son of a bitch! She barked over the restrained Wendigo's grunting growls. You were feigning sleep so I get close enough for you to fucking pounce? She unclenched her pale fists to rub away the sandy blonde curls from her stinging eyes. Listen up, you devious bastard. I know you're not human, but after what almost happened, I see that you're still smart. I'm just trying to help you, so why can't you see that? The triggered woman endeavored a calming breath for her shrilling voice to cease with abusing her throat's poor chords. Then her gaze met the glower of her cursed beloved, and smiled half-heartedly. "Can you remember me at all, Pen? Penny baby? It's me, Summer. Sums." The woman's weakly raised lips fell, because without a single sign of any sort of recognition, the food-focused, chained cryptid didn't relent with flaring his elongated muzzle. He was in a quadrupedal crouch, pulling from the metal binds, while shackled, swiping claws scraped serrated lines in the solidest stone concrete. Summer despondently discerned Ben on all fours. The back of his furred neck was bristling. His serpent-length prehensile tongue was alike to a hydraulic ram, whipping to snatch an arm, as seemingly limitless teeth gnashed amid ichor-flicking lashes. Sorrowfully, the woman's eyelids slid closed. This wasn't her beloved. This was a starved tiger from an abandoned circus. The past wording in the forest was no more than a ruse, and his own name no longer held any value to his animalistic cognizance. "You don't care who I am," avowed his dejected wife. "The only thing I am to you is meat." Uneasily, she watched the furred chameleon crazily trying to latch up her scent from the air, which made Summer subconsciously rub her wrists. The virtually 24-inch tongue was still flogging at her direction to yank the fly into that drooling huge maw. The jangling chains were as brash as Ben was, and he was becoming more peeved by the second. And so was Summer. "I bet you care what this is." She drew out the taser from her coat's right pocket, and with a yip and ears flattened over his skull, Ben lurched back as much as the chains permitted. It was a good thing the towering, thin cryptid was kept low to the floor, as the basement didn't have the lofty walls as the house's higher levels. Otherwise his antlers would be ramming into the ceiling from his erratic vaulting. Ben proceeded to tug and wrench with teeth and claws, to no avail. He then bit his bonds and gnawed away, only to yip out bitterly and paw at his canines. The woman viewed with worried relief after the Wendigo proceeded to prod his profusely spiky horns into the chains, again and again with no effect. He tried nibbling at the metal loops, resulting with only vexed rumbles between chews. Summer nodded to herself in full indebtedness to the wonderfully reliant Robert Bree. Not only were the solid stainless steel restraints durable enough to detain a dangerous cryptid, but were also coated with the same metal as her necklace was made of: sterling silver. Besides fire or head decapitation, all the past Wendigo writings stated that pure silver was the only solidified weapon that could eliminate the near invulnerable cryptids, or seriously maim them while trying to escape. And by the looks and sound of things, Ben was disgruntledly finding this out. After another high-pitched groan, blood was lining his gums from futile attempts of escape, and Summer lowered the stun gun to her side, letting out a lament moan. It was certainly not her intention for Ben to hurt himself. She only exposed the taser in order for him to stop that scary-ass tongue thrashing. Not to mention, she didn't want him to become desperate enough to chew a goddamn arm off. The woman read that Wendigos were fast healers, and by his scars, this was presumably correct. However, the regeneration factor being true, she sure as hell did not want to discover the accuracy on that. The woman blinked at the heavy collar and shackles and hoped they weren't too uncomfortable. She wished she could have used a softer binding made out of silver, perhaps some indestructible ribbon. She rebuked herself with a scoff. Ben wasn't some wolf deity. She recited too many Greek mythology books to her little sister. Almost instantly, the beast had settled when the weapon was down, but when Summer returned it to her coat, his neck fur and growls arose. Summer readied her wriggling, slender fingers near the put-away stun gun, and Ben quieted his aggression. She had won the showdown without a draw, and curtly nodded. "Good boy. Fast learner." With a hand kept at the near ready by her pocket, she turned around and headed towards the stairwell, only to hear that mist, soothed and pleasant tone. "Nuh-uh," cut off the exasperated woman. She kept a hand onto the wooden railing, blindly facing the aloft door, and screwed eyelids to avoid the urge to glance over her shoulder. "Not this time, manipulative motherfucker!" Since his deception was ignored, the Wendigo dropped the pseudo-illusion and resumed his heinous snarling, his nostrils every so often twitching in scrutiny. He did not want any more of the painful stinging, so the jail beast sat hunched over while following his uphill prey with hungry, glaring eyes. When Summer quietly drew the exit ajar to make sure her smaller resident wasn't waiting on the other side, hollow-sounding rumbles came from him. But unlike the preceding growls, the noise wasn't from his throat. Willingly, Summer looked back at Ben. He remained in his cryptid shape, and was craning his fettered neck, sniffing the air in rapid session. A small smile lifted on Summer's soft features. For she knew unerringly what had received his interest. "You're not really you," she whispered, "and I get that. But you've never stopped fighting, and I'll never let go either." And as the head of the Wendigo began to slant from his strange prey's resolute behavior, the basement door was carefully closed. When Summer turned around, she found Posey jumping off from one of the kitchen windows. She surmised her cat had recalled seeing her use the storm cellar doors and was checking to see if her owner would come around the house. The domestic shorthair was perhaps on top of things more than Summer gave her credit for. As the feline looped around the woman's legs, her paws leapt from the frustrated, famished beast's muffled roar below, causing her bridled fur to heckle and Summer to jolt up as well. The woman glimpsed her scared companion scamper into the parlor, and as the raucous cursed wail lamented underneath her slippers, that reconsidered assumption seeped into her chilled soul once more. Maybe the howling is from Ben's pain and endless hunger. However, the boisterous yowls had also reminded Summer of her arm. She regarded the lengthy rips as her fingers poked through until the tips felt bare skin, which was covered in nervous goosebumps. In spite of the woodland isolation of the Cape House, a big part of Summer was glad for the super soundproof installation that was customized within her basement structure and around its doors. Whereas a small and terrified part of her wished all of this was another night terror. The woman hopelessly clung the unrepairable fabrics closed. Ben had lashed out so damn fast. It made her realize that her past considerations to putting a flare gun in her backpack for help would have been irrelevant. She'd be dead before the lights even ignited the sky. But that one mishap could have ruined everything. She better not dare challenge Lady Luck and fuck up again. For even though this entire scenario was downright nightmarish, it was neither a dream nor a game. There were no do-overs or resets in life. And as Ben's stifled bellows vibrated through the carpet's floorboards, the fearful woman felt lost. Almost as lost as her silver-filled sidearm, which by now was embedded in over several feet of frozen ice, amidst in the cold, cruel, wide-out vastness of the North Woods.